Hey, and we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to another Reedsy Live, our ongoing series of webinars where we bring on professionals from the world of publishing to show you how to write, publish, and market better books. This week, we have a very special edition of this that's all about author websites. I have with me a fantastic professional that we have here on the Reedsy network. Oh my God, I've done this thing again. Every like three one of these I do. I like leave the YouTube thing on the background, and so like 20 seconds after I start, I hear the video that I just started 20 seconds ago. So that's a fiasco. I'll try cut this out if I do ever edit this. Anyway, today's one's all about web design. I've got on one of Reedsy's top-rated web designers. In fact, the top-rated web designer, as he'll tell you. He's been working here for a couple of years, but I only had the chance to meet him about a month or two back when I attended the self-publishing show live here in London, which is a big sort of symposium of sorts for the indie publishing world, where they bring on lots of authors and sort of professionals that work in the sphere of self-publishing, and a lot of great stuff. But I was able to sit next to Stuart here at a dinner hosted by Mark Dawson, who's a bit of a leading figure here in the indie publishing world. He's going to come on and he's going to talk to you about how to make the most of your author website. Of course, we are a marketplace full of web designers, so if you're ever looking for an author website, we've got lots of fantastic people, including Stuart, who can help you. But a lot of the tips that Stuart will be sharing will be applicable if you have your own, if you're making your own. You'll get an idea of what your website website should look like, and give you tips on how to sort of improve yours, things that you can add to it, things that you can sort of tweak. Anyway, I'm really pleased to see so many people join. I've asked at the top for you to tell us where you're from and whether you've got a website you're working with right now. I see we've got Paul from the UK. He's got an author website on the way. Kathy from Michigan, no website. A little bit further down, Jacqueline from North Carolina, no website, would like to create one. Fantastic. You're in the right place, Jacqueline. We have Margie from South Dakota. Welcome. Florentia from Bedfordshire. Wonderful. Mason has just published their first book and created their website, but clearly needs work. Well, you two are also in the right place. If you're not familiar with Reedsy, I'm Martin from the team here in London. Our company is spread far and wide, but there are a few of us based here in London. We've been going for about 7-ish years. We're a marketplace where professionals from the world of publishing, so we're talking editors and book cover designers, web designers, marketers, will come, and we've curated them to make sure only the finest ones are available to authors, including yourselves. So if you're ever looking to work with pros, just head on to reedsy.com, sign up for a free account, and you can start browsing through some fantastic profiles. You can see the stuff they've worked on, the clients they've worked on, the books they've worked on. It's a good little platform. If you have not seen it yet, sign up for a free account. I think there should be a link in the description below, and I think you'll like what you see. All right, let's see who else is here. Sky Goddess from Toronto, Canada. No website. And we have a Christian, just gives us a wave, mysterious. Valrita from Canada, also in the process of getting a website up and running. Fantastic. Good to see so many people getting on the website train. Hopefully you'll find this useful today. All right. Sharon says, did you miss a lot? You have not. We have yet to start. I'm not the presentation. I'm just the pre-show, the tap dancer, the person just keeping things warm before our guest turns up. Before we start, if you enjoy these webinars, please do give the video a like and subscribe to our channel. We put out great new videos every week and have new webinars every other week. So if you're interested in writing, if you're interested in publishing, please give us a subscription. Subscribe to our channel, and I'm sure you'll like what you see. Okay. Well, it is now 8 o'clock where I am, 3 p.m. over on the East Coast, and noon on the Pacific. I think it's midnight in India, 3 a.m. in Hong Kong, 5 a.m. in Sydney. That's my way of saying it's time for me to bring on my guest for today. So please help me welcome Stuart Grant. Stuart, how you doing?
Hi, good. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. I'm so impressed that you know all those time zones off the top of your head.
I've had to sort of, you have to put them on every single email I send out, so I'm sort of tuned into that. The two worst times of the year for me are when daylight savings changes each way, because it's different in America to over here, so there's like a 1-week period where everything's just messed for me.
Yes, that is totally screwy. Everyone's on different times. A nightmare. But
But
yes, thank you for having me, Martin. Thanks for the intro. Great to be here. It's a hot and sweaty night here in in the UK, in Norwich, where I am. But we'll get through. And hello to everyone that's joining us. Still, there's lots of people coming in. That's great.
yeah, we're going to give them just a minute or two because we said we're going to start at 8, but we'll give them just a little bit of time to filter in and settle themselves down. If they've yet to make themselves a cup of coffee or tea, there's still a minute or two to do that. Yeah. So Stuart, you're based in Norwich. You say? Have you always been there?
Um, no, I've moved around a little bit. Born and bred in a place called Essex, which even the Americans might have heard of, and then moved to sort of a bit more north into Suffolk, which is another county. And then I've ended up here with my wife, 4-year-old daughter, and dog in Norfolk, where I work from home, creating author websites. Yeah, I lived in London for 4 years as well, doing some various things there. So mainly the sort of east and south of England is my hometown, and yeah, beautiful place to live as well.
Yeah, Norwich and Norfolk is sort of very much the daughter and dog area. Is where you sort of move out once you've established a family. You got a little bit of green space. Very generous.
Exactly.
All right, we
Yeah.
might get a start in just a minute. Yeah, well, so how this is going to work, everyone watching at home, people might turn up late and ask what the deal is. Stuart's going to give a presentation. There's going to be a slide deck. Of course, there's going to be interest in getting the slide deck later, but this video is going to be available at this link on YouTube, ideally forever, assuming nothing happens to YouTube or the internet or us. So if you want to see the slides at any point, just replay the video and scrub across it. In the coming days, I'll have a transcript made, so if anything's going too fast or you need anything sort of crystallized, keep an eye out for the transcript at blog.reedsy.com/live. If you sign up through Eventbrite, I'll send you another reminder email with all that stuff. So don't worry about taking notes if that's not your bag. The transcript will be available later. If you could communicate this to anyone who asks in the chat later, be very appreciative. We'll also have a Q&A at the end, so if you send any questions throughout, I might put them up on the screen if they're relevant at that time. Otherwise, feel free to ask them again at the end during the Q&A. I'm sure we'll be sticking around for a while, so if you have a question, we'll do our best to have it answered. All right, with that, Stuart, you good to go?
I think so.
All right, brilliant. Okay, in which case, I'll hit up the PowerPoint, and I'll see you at the end.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. As I mentioned, I've got a 4-year-old daughter. She's just turned 4, a wife and a dog, and I'm not sure who's going to make more noise tonight. I am working from home, so if you hear dogs barking and children screaming and possibly my wife screaming, you'll have to just forgive me. That's one of the benefits of working from home. I'm sure some of you are in that similar situation. So yes, it's 8 o'clock here in the UK, and I'm going to be talking to you about how to make a great author website. That's me in the corner, little REM mentioned there. And I'm Stuart Grant, and this is what we're discussing. So, what are we going to cover this evening? So, I'll introduce you a little bit more to who I am and why I've got the right to talk to you about your website. What is your author website for? I.e., why do you need one? We'll be covering off a few points on that. It's something I do get asked, and I think there's some relevant answers that I can give you. What does your author website need to look like? Okay, I need a website. What do I need on it? And we'll try and answer that question today. How do you draw people to your site? That's quite a big one, because obviously it's no good just having a website. You need people to visit it and use it. So we're going to look at some ways that you can pull people in to look at your site and use it. And then lastly, bearing in mind that we're part of the Reedsy ecosystem here, we're going to be talking about how to get the most from your website designer. I should point out at the very top that, of course, Reedsy has lots and lots of website designers, but you can also develop your own website as well. So this is not the only way to create a website, but we'll be focusing mostly today on what you need and how you're going to manage with a web designer if you choose to use one. So who am I? So I'm a former lecturer from way back in time. I was head of theatre and English department. I was 25 years on the radio as a presenter and as a club DJ, actually. And I know what you're all thinking. How can that be? He doesn't even look 25. I know. I've got great moisturizer. It's actually my wife's, but don't tell her. For the last few years, maybe 6-7 years, I've been training businesses and authors to use Instagram and other social media. I've been working in the publishing industry for 6 years. I'm part of the team at the self-publishing formula. I think Martin mentioned Mark Dawson earlier, and I'm part of the team that gets the podcast live every Friday and other various bits and pieces throughout the year, doing things, in fact, every week for the self-publishing formula. I'm also part of the team behind Hello Books, which is a distribution system where we send free books to readers, and authors can sign up to have their books sent off to readers. I've made over 100 websites. I've seen some really good ones. I've seen some really bad ones, and I've tried to make 100 really good ones, or over 100. So I've got lots of experience with different genres, different requests, different needs. And hopefully today I can give you a bit of an insight into the best things you need for your author website. I'm a Wix partner, so I do use Wix exclusively. That's after many years of trying other platforms, including WordPress and Squarespace and various others. And for me, Wix was just the clear winner by a country mile. It's a brilliant platform for authors because it's got everything in one place. And that's just my calling. I tend to use Wix. Well, not tend. I only use Wix exclusively. And I'm a legend status there. So I am officially a legend, which is lovely. It's about the only time in my life I ever have been. But that's determined by how many sites you've made, not just how cool you are. So I am currently the highest rated web designer on Reedsy. I think I've got 54 5-star reviews. Now, those reviews can't be made up. They're all genuine. And, I'm very and extremely proud of that accolade and that position. I've worked with Reedsy now, as Martin said, for a number of years. It's a brilliant platform, and I've been very happy with the clientele and the things that I can create for people. So that's who I am. So what is your website for? Well, lots of things. We're going to cover off sort of 4 main ones that I could think of today. So it's your corner of the internet. It's the only thing that you really truly own. When you fill in your author profile on Amazon or Facebook or whatever it is, you're very much determined by their formats, their colors, their styling. Everything is theirs, and you don't really get much play around with what you actually want. Whereas a website gives you that sort of editorial and creative freedom to create whatever the hell you like. You can make it look exactly as you want it. And that's quite a important part of what I'll talk about later as well in terms of branding. It's important that you have a thing that reflects you and your books, and is something that hosts things that you want to showcase. Now, you might want to talk about other things on your website, like being a speaker or I don't know, a musician even, and they're the sort of things that you can't do on Amazon or Facebook or wherever else. So it gives you a unique opportunity to put all the stuff that you think is relevant in your corner of the internet. It's a place for readers to find you. And by that, I mean, if somebody Googles your name, hopefully, if we do some of the things that I'm going to talk about, your name will appear at the top of a Google search. Other search engines are available. Yes, they are, believe it or not. So it's a place for readers to find you. It should find you when somebody Googles your name. And more than that, it's a place to find out about you. So to tell them a little bit more about you, who you are, what you do, and why you do it. Okay, you'd be amazed how many authors I work with. And I say, send me some information about yourself, a bio or whatever you want to call it. And I get 3 lines saying, I write crime thrillers and live in Ohio. That's probably not what a reader is looking for. They're looking for a lot more than that. That's why people love behind the scenes DVDs. They love looking behind the curtain. They want to know more about you. If you take someone extreme, I know, but like Lee Childs, for example, there's actually a book written about him called Reacher Said Nothing. And that's a whole book about him because there was a demand for information about the author. Martin, I don't know if you're still with us. There we go. For some reason, my PowerPoint disappeared there.
Sorry, I thought every now and again people might want to see your face. So
Oh no, don't do that. Yeah, so make sure that when you're designing your site, you do design it around you and the stuff about you, why you write, what you write, who you are, where you came from. All those kind of things are critical to people's relationship with you. You are telling a story about yourself, okay? And that's a really important point that some authors are a bit afraid to do, but don't be. It's a, you know, when I look at stats for what pages people view, often the bio is a high rated page on people's websites. So it's also a marketing tool, obviously, for readers. But don't forget people like publishers and things like promotions. In fact, on the SPS show last week, there was a publisher who said, you know, when I'm assessing an author's viability, I will look at their website. So it's got to be great, not just for your reader, but for all the other plethora of things that might come along, news, interviews, anything you can think of. But it's not just for readers. This is a marketing tool that needs to be as wide as it can be. And critically, it's a place to collect reader emails. You'll have heard this 100 times if you've been listening to any kind of podcasts. That's the gold standard for communicating with readers. You know, obviously you've got Facebook, Amazon, etc., etc. But the one way that you own and you have control over this is collecting emails. So that is one of the primary things that I would expect for any author website. Have a mailing list and use your website to collect those emails. I think we jumped. No. Also, of course, you want to have links to stores on the website so that people can easily click through to wherever the book is for sale and buy the book. All right. Obviously, most authors are going to have links to Amazon. If they're exclusive, they might have universal book links that point them to all different stores. So they'll go to lots of different places if you are wide. But largely, you definitely want the links to the stores on your website, easy to find, front of mind, so that people go, oh yeah, I'll give that a go, and click the button. Or of course, and this is actually bubbling around in the background a lot at the moment, there's this talk about direct sales. So you cut out the middle person and you sell the books yourself. Obviously, you get more of the profit by doing that. The downside is, of course, that you have to think a little bit more about things like potentially postage, you know, fees, getting the books printed one way or another. Now, some authors use print on demand order systems and stuff, but the majority of authors I work with tend to go with sort of the first one. They just have links to stores, and but that is coming through. The direct sales is definitely something that authors are starting to ask me more and more. Now, obviously, they're looking to get more of the money. They don't want to give the money to Amazon. Poor old Jeff Bezos needs a few more quid, so that's why they charge those. But if you can sell your own books, then you're going to make more money. But it may not be the easiest or appropriate solution for you. So think very carefully before you jump in to do that. So what does your website need to look like? Well, I'll give you some clues. Stay classy, authors. Okay, there's my little Anchorman reference. Make sure it's modern and up to date. You know, a website that was built in 2000, which was 22 years ago, people, is not going to look in keeping with other websites today. It's got to look modern. It's got to be up to date. If you think it's going to cut it, if you built it in 1990, it's just not. And people will immediately get turned off. So always make sure that website is as up to date and as modern as it can be. Make sure it's reflective of your genre. So people talk a lot about tropes and having the right tropes in their books so that readers get the genre and they understand what the book's about. Well, the same is actually true for things like websites. You want people to land on your website and instantly recognize who this is, what it's about, what kind of book they're expecting, what kind of author this is. So think about how you can, you know, stretch all of those things across to your website. It shouldn't really just be a white canvas with your book in the middle. You know, that's not quite enough anymore. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. Book covers. So this is like author 101, isn't it? You know, a book cover is a piece of art. They are beautiful things that you've paid good money for generally, and they are my starting point for design. So I always ask an author for their book covers, and generally I don't like starting. In fact, I won't start an author website until I've got at least one cover, because they reflect your brand. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but please make sure that your book covers are professional and high quality. Do your due diligence, check against other people in your genre, and make sure your book cover stands up comparatively. I have been sent some really bad covers, okay, and some, we not all of us can see our own work, and that's, that can be, but what I would recommend is that you make sure you have the best cover you have, and that it literally could be hung on the wall. Your website then should form part of your branding. So if it reflects your book covers, it should then look like your book covers. Therefore, you and your book covers become recognizable. So my recommendation is to use similar fonts to your book covers, use similar colors, similar styles. If you think like a brand, you want people to recognize your website, you want people to recognize your book. All of those things need to sit together so that independently people will immediately know who this is. I mean, you're not Coca-Cola, let's be honest, but you can move down that road, okay, and you can start to build a brand that works as an ecosystem around you. Websites, social media, website and book covers. It's all very, very important. If we take this one, for example, this is James, who is part of the self-publishing formula as well. So I built James's site a couple of years ago. He's recently updated his book covers, which is a little bit annoying, but whatever. Now, what I did here, and this is what I'm talking about as a piece of art and inspiration. So I asked the book cover designer, which was the legendary Stuart Grant, to take the text off the book cover and give me just the image that he created for this book cover, and use it as a backdrop to the landing page, if you like, excuse the pun, it's about airplanes, of this website. And I think you'll agree, it looks really nice sat on top of the background. So the fonts are the same, the colorings are reflective of, actually James Blatch could be in black. I think it is on one other page, but there we go. Self-monitoring myself even as I work here. But yes, so there's an idea for you to use. What should I use as a background? Well, get more mileage out of that lovely book cover that you've spent a number of pounds and pence and dollars on. You can use it on your website as something that speaks to readers, and immediately then I recognize it. I know who this is. I've got the same branding, I've got the same fonts, I've got the same colors. It all fits together and works really well. What else? So make sure it's up to date. I mentioned that earlier, I think, but I mean it more in terms of making sure all the links work. You'd be amazed how many author websites I visit, and the links don't point to the right stores, or they're out of date, or they don't work anymore for whatever reason. So just make sure that your website works. That's such a simple but obvious thing to say. All the images, are they the best they can be? Are they really low res? Do they look nasty? Well, if they do, then get new ones, update them, make sure it's modern and clean and contemporary. Have you done an audit recently on your own website? Have you looked at it yourself and tested everything, or even asked a friend? This is a great tip for you. Get one of your family members or a friend to go through the process of signing up on the website and see what happens. Make sure they get the autoresponder that you think they get. Make sure when they fill in the contact form, they get something back that says, hey, I got your message, I'll get back to you. So do an audit of your site. Have a look at it with fresh eyes. Some of you probably haven't looked at your website for a year or more. Hands up if that's you. I'm sure there's lots of you. You make your website, you leave it over there, and off it goes. The one thing I kind of wanted to mention here today as well is movement. And is your website alive? Now, website design is not static. It doesn't sit still, and neither should the websites. So I think where I see website design going is that there's going to be a lot more demand for interactive, moving, kinetic, alive design. And what makes me think that? Well, let's talk about somebody like Apple. Now, I think probably Apple have got just about enough money to do a bit of research into what works for websites. So I always kind of visit people like Apple to see what they're doing, how they do it, because something tells me they know, or at least they're in the know more than me, because they can afford to do lots of research. They can see, detailed analytics. They've got people full time just looking at this page or whatever. So if we just look at this recent release for AirPods, the third generation, and just see what happens when you land on this page. So we've got some movement. It's a bit stuttery, but it draws you right into the web page. It takes us where it wants to show us the product. Again, right in, bit of color, some animation, some punchy text. And as we scroll down the website, it does tweaks that happen that just bring you into what's going on. And then as we go down, it gets a little bit simpler as it wants to give you more information. Lots of images of the product, i.e. book cover. And then we've got the prices at the bottom. So just in terms of where I think web design is going, this is the kind of thing we might be talking about. A little bit more movement, a little bit more animation. If you're just going to have a static website, you might as well give out leaflets. You know, you want your website to be almost filmic. This is almost an advert for you. So my USP, I think, is that I try to build websites that do have a little bit of movement and animation, just to keep the user engaged and looking to see what's going place. Where are the buy now buttons? Where are the book covers? How do I draw somebody into those places? Talking of which, how do we draw people to your website? So there's a few things that you may not have considered. There we go. Make sure you're using all available real estate. And by real estate, I mean places where you can put your web address. You know, so lots of people say, oh, I don't get very many visitors. But then I say, well, where have you put your web address? In the back of my book, you know, and that's it. Have you thought about things like putting it on your Facebook cover photo and then in the description of the Facebook cover photo as well? You know, have it actually on the image itself, have it on your profile images on all your social media. You know, whatever your address is, stuartgrant.co or whatever, have it in as many places where you've got graphics as you can. So whenever you create a graphic on Canva or BookBrush or wherever, always think about adding your web address to it somewhere. It doesn't have to be clickable. Ideally, it will be, but in many cases, if it's a flat image, it can't be. But always add it. Then you're putting your name and your web brand out there. Don't forget those links in bios, particularly places like Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you have your web address there, and always include a call to action in your bio as well. So you tell people who visit your social media profiles what they can expect if they click the link. So you might say, get the first chapter in my brand new novel by clicking the link below, you know, and then have it on your bio as a link. What about the footer of your email? Have you definitely got your web address at the footer of your emails? You'd be amazed how many people click through from the bottom of an email. If you haven't, you're missing a trick. There's lots of free services out there. I think AppSumo have got one called Email Badge. I think it's about $8, and you can add your web address and other links to the bottom of your email in about 10 minutes. So I don't work for AppSumo. That's just a tip. Also, don't forget the front and back of books. You know, both of those should have your web address and telling people why they should visit and what's there. Business cards, simple, old school. You may not go to places where you can give them out, but if you do, make sure you print them. They're so cheap. You can get 100 for $9 or whatever. And don't forget, just regular posts on social media. If you're running out of things to say, why not say, hey, check out my website here and read about how I used to be a saxophone player or whatever. Think about those, maybe even monthly posts that have your web address on. Do not ignore your social media as a powerful tool to get people to come to your website. So if you are working with a professional designer, how can you get the most out of it? First of all, as I've mentioned, make sure you've got excellent covers ready. Get pro covers. I've said it twice because it is probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. It will help your designer, and it will help you, if you're making your own, to really get a feel and a flavour for what you need and how it needs to sit around your book cover. So it really is the number one starting point for any design when it comes to web design. Now, obviously, some of you are probably thinking, well, I've got multiple genres, so my book covers are different. Fine, there are ways to blend two together, or you have separate areas on each website, one which looks like this genre and one which looks like this genre. I've just finished 2 websites. One had 7 series and different genres, and one had 8. So yeah, that was a fun project. Make sure, as I said, to do some due diligence. find some other sites by authors in your genre as inspiration and use those as creative ideas to share with your designer. Okay, there's nothing wrong, nobody owns these websites, so well, in the sense that, if you see something you like, you can always say to your designer, I really like the way that floats in, or I like the way that moves, or whatever. That's absolutely fine. And I do recommend with book covers, as I've said already, and with websites, do some due diligence, find some peers in your genre and see what their websites are like. You might see some really great ones. You'll probably see some really bad ones. There are some very successful authors out there with very, very bad websites. If you find any that are really bad, send them to me, because it's good fun. But also, if you see any really brilliant ones, I'm always interested to see those as well. I've got a list in my notes on my computer, as long as your arm, of great websites. So when you're working with a designer, don't be too prescriptive. Okay, I've had some really prescriptive type customers who say, I want it exactly like this, exactly like that. I want, you don't, what's the phrase? I can't remember. You don't buy a dog and bark yourself. So, the idea is that you're letting the designer do what they do. Let them feel their way around your content and your book and your genre. They might bring something to the party you hadn't considered. Obviously, some of you will be very sort of clear about what you want. That's absolutely fine. But there is a difference between being clear and saying, this is exactly what I want, because you may not understand why that won't work, or you may not, it may be too difficult, or whatever. It might be time consuming. So let the designer do what they do. That's you can tell that comes from experience. Always check out a designer's reviews. These can tell you a lot, particularly on a platform like Reedsy, where they are 100% verified, genuine. They can't be fudged. Obviously, people can make up what the hell they like on their own websites, but on places like Reedsy, they are absolutely 100% guaranteed real. And if somebody, if people are singing lyrical about a designer, you can probably bet that they're right and it's true. So check out their portfolios and examples. Obviously, that's probably a bit of a 101. Although I have had people say, oh, I just like the look of you. No, that's never happened. So yeah, check out portfolios and examples, and use those as examples if you want. I want one that looks like XYZ. I've had a number of people say, I want one that looks like James Batch's website. And obviously I'll work around that so it looks a bit like it, or does some of the same things, but nothing is unique in that sense, I suppose. And also choose your platform wisely. So I mentioned at the top that I only use Wix. As I said, I've had experience with lots of other platforms. Some people struggle with one and love another. They love one and struggle with another. So just make sure that you've found out about them. Okay, there's an age-old debate about WordPress. There's a lot of heritage, a lot of misinformation about that platform that's somewhat out of date in my opinion. But it's up to you to work with a platform that works with you. You want a site that you're excited about, that you can go to, click a button and update your latest book cover without faffing about. You want to be able to do that really quickly and without too much fuss. So make sure you've got a platform that you can do that with. So I think we're coming to the sort of half-hour point-ish. We've got a few more points to get through here. So finally, just kind of summarizing some of this stuff and giving you a few more ideas. Make sure you've got a clear call to action on your website. Okay, it should say, do this, sign up here and get this. Tell me what's going to happen and why I need to sign up. Okay, get those people on your mailing list. People sometimes need a bit of help. Okay, sometimes you do need to lead a horse to water and tell it to drink. And some people need a bit of help with what to do and what's going to happen. You'd be amazed at how many people don't get it sometimes. When you think it's clear, when you think it's obvious, other people go, what does that mean? Put my email in, what's going to happen? Be clear about those kind of things. So make sure if you've got a call to action, it's big, it's bold, it's clear, and it's telling people what's going to happen when they do it. My recommendation is, alongside your email list, which is fundamental, obviously, give something away. It's always a good idea to have what's called a lead magnet. So something that you can offer your readers to sign up to your mailing list. So either a first chapter or a novella or a prequel or whatever. I think Mark Dawson originally had like a made up top secret document about his lead character. And I think James has got something similar, a sort of made up report on an air crash or something. So if you haven't got those initial kind of novellas or first chapters ready to go, you can do it by using other things. But always try and encourage people to sign up by giving them something back. It immediately establishes a relationship with you and your reader as well. You've given them something, they might come back to you and say, oh, thanks for that. It was great. Really enjoyed reading it. You've got a relationship forming straight away. They've gone from cold reader over here to warm reader, who's more than likely going to buy book 2 when you send them an email to say that it's out. Social media is such an obvious thing, but shout louder. Whatever you're doing at the moment, shout louder. Self-proclaim. No one looks if you whisper. All right? If you shout, people look. Walk down the street and try it. Tell me what happens. People will turn around if you shout. Okay? And I had an author on my Instagram who just kept posting about her book, to the point where I was like, oh my God, please. And it drove me so mad that in the end, I just went and bought it. But, that's the kind of attitude that you should take, that you want to overtell really rather than undertell. Because if you don't tell, nobody's going to buy it. If you do tell, people might. And okay, yes, there's the argument that you might become annoying. But most people don't get annoyed by stuff on social media in that way. Unless it's constant pictures of their child who's just turned 4. That's me. Remember, you have complete creative and editorial control over your website. This is unique to this space. It's the only place you get that, on your own website. Be friendly. Maybe think about a welcome video that says, hi, I'm author X and I write about blah, and it's great to have you here. And don't forget, if you sign up to my email list, blah, blah, blah. Lots of people don't like being on camera. I've got a face for radio for sure. But if you can get through that and just record even a 20-second little video that just says hi to your readers, again, suddenly you've established a relationship, you've pulled them in, you've made them aware of you and who you are. We've talked about already the author bio and how important that is. Don't be afraid to write that and make it interesting. Tell me more than you would initially write. Obviously, you need your books and your book covers, all your links, everything else needs to be on the website. The mailing lists, sign up. We've talked about that. Lots of authors ask me for a blog, and I have lost count out of the 100 or so websites that I've built of the authors that say, I'd really like a blog. And we do, half an hour training on how to write a blog or how to use it at least. And then I visit the site 6 months later and it's never been updated. And there is this argument about, would you rather be writing a blog that nobody reads or a book that makes you money? And there is that debate. Okay, some people are very successful blog writers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you aren't, then I recommend spending your time writing books rather than writing a blog. Okay? So that may be something you want, and it can help with SEO because it keeps your site active. You want a contact form. You want to be able to have authors get in touch with you. You'd be amazed how many people reach out. Things like a media page. Have you been on podcasts? Have you got any audio that you can record? Have you got a Head and Shoulders video of yourself? Have a media page where there's a little bit more interactivity, that people can do things and press buttons and watch stuff. Another idea that I wanted to throw out there, which one of the authors I had came to me with, which I think is great, is a PDF for book clubs. So there's just a PDF on the site you can download. It's got a load of questions, I think 10 questions about the book that people can use if they form a book club. Great. It's a nice little interactive thing you can have on your site. A lot of the children's sites that I've done, we've tried to include quizzes or covers, the covers of the book with all the colours taken out so the kids can download them and colour them in. So there's all sorts of things beyond just a flat, static website that you can start to introduce to make it a go-to place and have a reason for people to visit. I'm going to come to that. Actually, I'll do the last one now. The domain name. I get asked this all the time. What should it be? It should always, in my opinion, be your name, not a book name. If you get a book name, it limits you to that book. So if you start to do series, another series or book 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, everyone is only looking at that first book that you've given that website to, and you're limited to making the website really only about that. Whereas if it's your name, it gives you the freedom to grow that website across books, speaking engagements, non-fiction, fiction. It could have anything and everything that is part of you. So when choosing a domain name, always look for your name. If your name's taken, then just add a middle initial. So Mark Dawson, for example, has got Mark J. Dawson. Or you might just put something like author at the end. So it might be stuartgrantauthor.com. So there are lots of ways you can kind of manage that if you can't find your name specifically. And don't worry again too much about .com. That's a bit of an old-fashioned perspective. It doesn't matter if you get a .net or a .co or whatever. 2 points that I just noted down while I was talking there that I forgot about on this list was mobile optimization. That is an absolute 100% must. That Google looks at mobile optimization now, and it will assess how much it's going to serve your site to readers. If it's not mobile optimized, it won't get served. It's as simple as that. So make sure that it's working on a mobile and it looks great. And by that, I mean, fire up your phone, fire up your iPad and look at your site. Do that audit. Okay, you know, half an hour doing that tomorrow morning could save you a lot of stress down the line. And oh yeah, I said this anyway at the beginning. Don't forget you can build your own. There's lots of website builders out there. So I think that's it from me. We've hit the 35-minute mark, I think, just about. So you can find me on social media at Stuart Grant UK. That's everywhere. So that's another tip for you. You know, use your social media profile. I've branded all of mine exactly the same so that my message is find me at Stuart Grant UK. And that's the same on Instagram, Twitter, and wherever else, Pinterest, LinkedIn, everywhere. And of course, you can find me on Reedsy as well. So thank you very much for having me on today there, Martin. I hope that was useful.
No, it's wonderful. We've had lots of questions coming in. There have been a few people actually providing some really good answers in there. So we may just have to round out on some of them. But I believe, what was it? Karen Gruber has been giving some fantastic answers. But I want to thank you again, Stuart. Here's a link. The link to his profile is in the video description. If you're looking for someone to work on your next website, hit that one up. And yeah, of course, sign up for Reedsy and you can browse through all the other fantastic designers we have, of which there are none better than Stuart, but others are available.
Of course.
But before we do the Q&A, I want to do a small plug for myself, strangely enough. I never do this. But Reedsy's been working with a charity called Room to Read for the past few years. It's a literacy charity that works to funnel resources into places around Africa and Asia where literacy is an issue, where there's an undereducated population in certain regions. Some of the folks at Reedsy are doing a charity bike ride across Portugal. And I foolishly, though I do not cycle that much, have agreed to cycle this 300 kilometers. So I'm asking you if you're interested and have a couple of euros or dollars to spare. I'll put the link to the charity page here in the comments. Even if it's just $1 or $2 or euros, it'd be very appreciated. Yes, okay, enough of that plug. We're now on to the Q&A. We've got some real interesting stuff coming across. First of all, as one of the questions is, Stuart, where's the best place to buy a domain name? Are they much the same wherever you go, or are there places that are your go-tos?
Yeah. First of all, brilliant news on the bike ride. That's amazing. Good luck with that. I hope it goes really well. So it depends what you're doing, really. I mean, I tend to use services like GoDaddy. 123 Reg is another one that people use. I mean, for me, Wix provides that service as well. So often you can just buy, if you're going to build a site on Wix, you can buy a domain within that system as well. But yeah, GoDaddy probably is the one that I would think is the easiest to use and the one that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I use it as well, and I always worry that some of the other domain providers may try to upsell you quite a lot, but GoDaddy seems a bit hands-off with that. We have a question
Yeah.
here from PK Dumas. They ask, should first-time authors wait to build a site until after the first book is published? How does that help to land a publisher? I think you mentioned talking about that.
No, absolutely not. I think, you should get that site up and running as soon as possible. You can start collecting email addresses before your book goes live. You can promote what you're giving away. You can, as soon as you've got the book cover, you can use that as part of the content. You don't actually have to have the book at all. All you really need to do any of this is the book cover. That is really the primary thing. So, in answer to that first bit, should first-time authors wait to? No, I would get that site built and get some action and traction as soon as possible. The earlier you have it up, the more chance Google will read it and then serve it to people that search terms like thriller author or whatever, if that's what you do. And the second one was, how does that help to land a publisher? Well, if you've got activity on your site, if it looks great, if you've got a place for them to visit straight away, that's going to help anyway. So yeah, in terms of publishers and just having a site, definitely get it up as soon as you can.
If anyone tuned in for the webinar we had a few weeks ago about book marketing, one of the things that our guest there kept hammering home was the idea of connecting with readers, convincing them that you're a real person with an actual personality, and having your website that sort of has a bit of your voice, has your picture on it, does a lot to sort of allow you to stick your head up above all the other authors out there who are just like a name. They can't really put a face to it or an identity to it. So, yeah, I think a website is like your personality there on the internet. People who do eventually drop there will know more about you than if they find you on Amazon or if they sort of see your profile on Twitter, say.
Yeah.
Um, cool. I've got a few here. Oh, here's a related one. Elizabeth asks, if you don't have a book out and you have no cover, what do you do? So, I guess to that extent, like, would you set up a basic website that you're going to change later, or is it really not worth it until you have some sort of book, some sort of cover to push?
I mean, there's no law to say you can't do that, but I just feel that the book cover really is the core of a website. If you don't have a book out yet, you have no cover. I mean, it is the first thing to do, really, and I think for any author on this journey, getting a book cover really makes it real. So that would be the first thing I do, really, get a book cover for my book, and then you can do everything else with that. Start promoting, create a website, put it on social media and everything else. So. Don't worry if it's not out, but do get a cover.
All right, give me a second. What else is next? Uh, okay, here's a question a few people ask. When you have a website and you do write blogs, is that the same as a newsletter? Will my blog be distributed to the names of my MailChimp contacts?
It depends. And I'm not here to promote Wix at all, as I said at the top. But that one of the things I was talking about is that I use it because it's got that author all round thing. And one of the things that it does is that if you write a blog, you can hit a button that says "Send to my newsletter," and it sends it to a newsletter. So it converts it into that. Now, whether that's available on other platforms or not, I don't know. Probably it's available on WordPress. I would think maybe. But yes, I mean, there's no point in, you could definitely write your blog and then use it as a newsletter. Yes. And the other way around, of course, write a newsletter and then post it as a blog.
Yeah, they're sort of like different things, aren't they? Like a blog almost, either is a snapshot of where you are at this time, or if you're doing it from an SEO perspective, you kind of want it to be something that sort of exists for a long time. Like people can come to your site and find this information, or it could be used to bring people in. One of the questions people were talking about was S. Hine says, will you be talking about SEO? Um, from your experience, Stuart, what sort of impact has SEO had on any particular author you may have heard of or that you've worked with?
Yeah, it's huge. It is important. I mean, Google reads a website and looks for the relevant information. So when a user comes along and searches for a term, it almost, if you can imagine it, looks at every website out there and says, which of these websites do I want to serve to this person? What search terms have they put in and what do I need to look for? And it brings the right ones to you when you search a term. So if you don't have those search terms on your site, it's not going to get served. So in a sense, it's got to contain all the right information, be laid out correctly, mobile optimized, everything else. So SEO, really, search engine optimization, is very, very important. And yes, always make sure that you've got that up to date and as accurate as you can do.
Like, I think as someone who works in SEO, that's sort of my job here at Reedsy. I create content that brings people who search for certain terms to our website. There's like, I think as a new author, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to rank for like thriller author. So if someone types in like, oh, I want a new thriller book, and they type in thriller book, you're unlikely to turn up because there are already massive guys in front of you. But on one thing, as you said, if you are someone searching for your name, ideally you want to be at the top of the search result for someone who's searching for Stuart Grant web designer. And another thing, I guess, is if someone tells you about your book at a dinner party, say, you want them to be able to go on Google later and put in enough of the search terms to find your book. So for the James Blatch one, they go like, I don't remember what that book's called, but I know it's Cold War, aircrafts, thriller, British, and hopefully, like, if your page is sort of built with that content containing, the blurb about your book, they will be eventually able to sort of find your way back to that. Like, but you are people are unlikely to sort of find your massive sort of search terms or keywords.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Uh,
there are ways to manage the system. Google is actually a friendly system. It does work, and it's set up to work. So it's not impossible to make this happen. That people will search you and they will find you.
uh, Paul asks a question: what can Stuart say about designing a payment outlet for direct sales? So, if you're doing that direct sales model of selling books directly on your page.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of ways you can do that. Shopify offers a service that can take that. There's something called what's the one James uses? Pay deck or something, so you can integrate those into your site so they take the payments. Obviously, with things like Wix or Squarespace, they already have Stripe in the back end and PayPal and whatever else. So you purchase something and it goes through that payment gateway. So that actually is a fairly simple thing to do these days, and shouldn't, with a bit of googling, you should be able to find ways of doing that on your site.
Yeah, just bear in mind that the sort of direct sales method, like can get expensive. It probably does sometimes involve you maybe filling your living room up with copies of books and then having to mail them out. But it is like
Well,
best way to get the best royalties.
yeah, that is my point to a lot of authors. They think, oh, that's great, I'm going to make more money. But actually, they forget that they've got to wrap up all the books, take them to the post office, weigh them, put the stamps on them, and everything else. So it's not, it can be a bit, and even to have Shopify, for example, serve your books to people, I think that's $29 a month for the basic package. So already, you're paying something to have that service. I don't know if Paul means actually designing from scratch, but I don't. That's not really possible. You'd always use someone like PayPal or Stripe to do that.
This is not related, but someone asked what my T-shirt was. I used to work in film distribution, and when the film Foxcatcher came out, this is merchandise from that. Um,
Ooh.
I'm thinking about it. It's probably not the best merch because some poor guys got killed there. But it's a free T-shirt, and I will never say no to free T-shirts. Uh, sorry, let me see a few more questions here. Let's see. Jane is asking. You were talking about adding movement to it. Does that slow down access to the website once you start adding those extra elements in there?
Great question, Jane. Yeah, and I'm so glad you asked that actually, because the answer is yes, it used to, and that's why you're asking me, because everyone used to say, oh, if you have too much animation or movement on your site, it's going to slow it right down. But of course, we're in a completely different world from even 5 years ago. Our internet speeds are instant almost. Most of us have got lightning speed. So no is the answer now. It shouldn't slow down access to your website. It might if you've got a really, really low or poor signal or something, but in normal life, I mean, again, look at Apple. They wouldn't put all that animation, all that movement on their site if they thought for 1 second that it was going to stop people from buying. So I'd say the answer is a pretty resounding not anymore.
Okay, let's see. I've sort of put a little pin saying these are my favorite comments. I could put them back up again. Okay, let's have a look at when you're working with a professional designer. This question might relate just to you or what you believe should be in the skill set of a professional web designer. Should you be able to manipulate the images and sort of do some sort of basic visual design for them, for your clients?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think as a web designer, you automatically and naturally should be able to do this stuff. I mean, I use Canva with my eyes closed. I inside the Wix system again. There's a design system. It's something that kind of goes hand in hand with web building. So yes, I guess it depends what you're asking them to do. If you say, can you make me 25 social media posts with my book cover, the price, and blah, 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 I think they would be talking to you about a project fee there rather than just included in a web design fee. But yeah, I would think most designers, if not all, would be able to do that sort of thing for you.
Yeah, like simple stuff like manipulate images and resize them. But if you like go to them and like, oh, can you do something that's a mansion? It's got a driveway and there's like a Lamborghini out front and there's a blonde woman. It's like once you start going in that direction, you're basically asking for an illustration or professional design. Somebody
Yeah.
has just asked, what is the rough cost of a book cover? Over at Reedsy, we have a post called "How much does it cost to publish a book?" To show you how well our SEO does, just Google what's the cost to self-publish a book, and it will also have the sort of general breakdowns of how much it costs to get a professional book cover, which I think on average is anywhere for the professionals we have, who are folks who have worked with big authors and big publishers. The sort of median price is anywhere between 300 to 750 bucks. So it's less than you think, especially when you have the potential to hire pretty much the best in the business. We're not talking about like, you know, we're just hiring someone who just knows how to use Photoshop. This is like the people who design the books you love. They are available to work for you for a handful of hundreds of dollars. Uh, One question from Guy: uh, what about a book website aside from an author website? So okay, so people have been asking the idea of having separate websites for like a book, just so you can brand a book or brand a series. Is this something you've done or are familiar with?
Yes, I have. I recommend against it. As I mentioned in the session there, people are more likely to Google you and your name than they are the title of a book. It also limits you to that website being just about that book. And I would recommend not having more than one place for people to go. It means you've got more than one thing to maintain, more than one thing to pay for. It should all really be on your author website and have, you know, a page dedicated to the book by all means. I did have an author recently come to me and say they wanted a character website. So for their main character, they wanted one website. They only had one book out or two books out. And I said, look, you're just going to waste your time. Nobody's heard of your character until they've read your book. If you are Jack Reacher, obviously, global phenomenon, everyone's heard of him. It's every chance you're going to want a website for that character. But if you're kind of early stage author with an unknown character, really, no, do not spend the money, do not waste it. Just make a really well SEO page on your website that gives detail about the character, backgrounds, photos, or illustrations, or whatever.
Yeah, and remember, like with publishing with books, the author is the brand. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like you are the person. Whether you use a pen name, whatever, you are you are the person they come back for, not necessarily the characters. Of course, they know that within the Stuart Grant series, they can expect these characters to come back, but focus on your brand. So if you're ever wanting to pitch a new series of books, if you ever want to go to a traditional publisher, people already know who you are, instead of the person who does so and so books.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, let's see if there's any more here. Some of them are sort of repeats of some of them. If you write multiple series, of course, that sort of we've answered that. And this one, keep it focused. Here's a fun one. What's the most vague book description you've worked with to build a site?
um, yeah. I mean, I get things like I write romance. you know what? There are so many branches of romance for a start that it's a bit of a coverall term, romance. So in that instance, I would be pressing to find out a little bit more about what kind of, is it steamy romance, is it first love romance, sports, whatever, because obviously that is going to seriously impact. And actually, romance is a good example of where you can get it really horribly wrong. If you write a steamy series and you create a website that looks like a first love type series, then you're going to really cheese off your readers who are expecting something twee and find something hot.
We've got a very, very in the weeds question that I love from Mary Ann Horton. Question: your background shows a tree with your book at the top. This is the menu. Can you speak more about the menu structure of a good author website? So I guess when you tap the hamburger or the menu at the top, is there
Yeah,
sort of an order you find is sort of most conducive to a good author website?
yeah. Firstly, I think one of the most important things is that sign up box. So, it might be sign up here. So it might be the sign up that's the important bit, or at least the section that's got the sign up on it. So it might be the very top of the home page. So that might be the first thing you have. It doesn't actually have to say sign up box. It might just say home, but it will jump to, that first section where people sign up to get that freebie or that lead magnet or whatever. In terms of going down the scale, I guess home is obviously the important bit where you're going to collect emails. Then books might be the next one. That's the thing you're trying to shift at the end of the day. You're trying to sell the book. And then you probably are the third. And then things like blog, and then contact, perhaps in that sort of order in a descending. And I mean, there's that whole row or argument or debate, should I say, about what kind of website you should have. We're all very used to doing one scroll all the way down. So, a one-page website with everything on it, rather than having lots of different pages that people have got to jump in and out of. Some people like one, some people like the other. I personally prefer like a long one page, and then people won't move off. But you can have pages for different advantages, so you might want people to go to a certain page. So the menu, yeah, just kinds of sign ups, free books, books themselves, then contact, perhaps, as a very basic structure.
We've had a couple of questions about the cost of professional web design. It's a topic I've got in some trouble before because it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string type question. Is there sort of a range or a sort of rate that you're happy discussing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, to start any business, you're looking at investment, and you have to spend some coins, to get it started. And as Martin said, book covers are available through Reedsy. There are, pre-mades that you can get cheaper than people that might design. And in the same way with web design, you're going to pay for somebody's time. They know what they're doing. They've spent years developing their skills, so you're going to expect to pay for that. It also depends, if I'm honest, on how many books you've got. If you've got one book, great. That's not too onerous. But as I said earlier, somebody comes to me and they had 72 books and no website. So I'm then creating page after page with book covers, links, you name it. So obviously that kind of system build is going to cost a lot more. So I'd say that probably a fair estimate would be somewhere around the $500 mark as a starting point for a sort of very simple website. But that could go all the way up to $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 maybe. And players that I know in the game have paid $10,000 for their website. So it depends who's building it, how good they are, what they think they can get for it, and how long it's going to take them. In fairness, you are paying for people's time and skill. So
Yeah, I've just dropped a link to a post that we did a couple of years ago. So the figures are a little bit out of date. We had a look through the collaborations back then to see how much people were charging, and there is a pretty broad range, and it sort of does come down to what Stuart says: people's experience, their time, how much it will take on. But it's not super cheap. But the idea is that over time it will pay off because they know what they're doing. They can help you set up things that you might not be able to do by yourself. And yeah, so Maria has just asked, Martin, costs, question mark, question mark, question mark. Hopefully we've just answered this, but we are running a little bit behind on this. We have the link to the website I've just posted there. So $10,000, probably not. If you're starting off, you could probably get it for a shade. Well, no, not a shade. Quite a lot underneath that. But
yes.
yeah, do check out that post. And what you can do on Reedsy always is you can send a request to up to 5 professionals. So tell them what you need from your book, specifically what sort of book you're working on, the sort of elements you perhaps are looking for. Maybe you want help with a lead magnet, that sort of stuff, and they'll be able to give you a quote. And then if you prefer one to the other, you can go with them. If you don't like any of them, if it's all too rich for your blood, there's no obligation to go with anybody. Just give it a go, search it out there. Susan Wild asks, is Wix super user friendly? So I guess the one thing we may not have touched on is the idea that as a professional, you'll build a website, and it's not like you'll be helping them maintain it forevermore. The platform is designed for the author to be able to maintain themselves, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things I make sure, regardless of anyone's ability, is that they are able to do that themselves, that they can update their site. So I'll give full training. And it's always, working with a designer, it's another keynote really, kind of make sure that they give you training on how to update your site. um, to my mind, yes, Wix is absolutely super friendly. It is unbelievably powerful and easy to use. So certainly in comparison to other platforms that I've used, yeah, as I said, it's my recommendation. It doesn't mean you have to use it, obviously, and do try others, but it is super user friendly. Yes.
Cool. Let me see. I think. Let's see. Someone has sort of put out a question. Well, Ed Kaufman has asked the question. It's like, can you, or Ed Kaufman has asked, can you write a blog post and then use that content in your newsletter? Yeah, pretty much. I wouldn't do it exactly the same. I wouldn't sort of like repost it on your newsletter. What we do at Reedsy for our one, we write a new blog post and then I'll send out a newsletter saying, hey, are you interested in this topic? Go over to our blog and check it out. Because, of course, for me, I always want people to come back to my website because once they come to the website, you can capture them and get them interested in buying other stuff, doing other things. And so the point of a newsletter is almost always to get them to take some sort of action, right? Those of you who are talking about the idea that, why should I send out a newsletter? I never open newsletters. But I guess sometimes it's it's just the action of being in their inbox, right?
Exactly.
People don't have to read everything, but the one email you send in the year that says "new book out" and then your title is basically free advertising in their inbox. The thing that they're guaranteed to look at, every single day.
Yeah, I mean, sign up to some well-known authors, particularly indie authors. They tend to be a little bit more proactive with this. But yeah, sign up to a few and see what you get and the kinds of information and news that you get sent. Because a lot of it is actually just, what, I went to the cinema last night. But others of it will be, I'm thinking about a new character, or do you like my new book cover, or whatever. So I think they are very similar, newsletter and blog, but they can and do sometimes serve different purposes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. That sort of brings us to the end. Of course, Stuart, you can get him right below in the video description. You can check out his profile on Reedsy. And of course, I think at Stu Grant UK is your social media.
Yep.
Right, fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here, Stuart. Folks at home, thank you for sticking around that long. I want to say thank you to Kate Gaston for donating to Room to Read and the bike ride. I shall share a photo of me probably sweating or broken by the side of a road, so I really appreciate that. Anyone else who wishes to donate, the link's still in the video description and up in the chat box. Stuart, I hope that we can have you again at some point.
Yeah, I'd
Listen,
love to. Thanks so much for having me, guys, and really, really kind of you to have me on, Martin. And yeah, please reach out if you've got any questions or you'd like anything answered. I'm more than happy to feed back and answer your questions, guys. So I look forward to speaking to you.
all right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Catch you next time. Bye.
Bye bye.